Through hard work, diligence, frugality, and time, households can become wealthy even without a 6- or 7-figure salary. You should not purchase a home that requires a mortgage that's more than 2 times of your household's annual realized income. Welcome to Fi Study Room, where we learn and achieve financial independence together. If you are ready to break free from the 9 to 5 and take control of your time, this is the right place. Hi everyone, I am PJ. In this episode, we're going to be talking about a book, The Millionaire Next Door. I'll go through my main takeaways from this book. So if you're not really interested in reading the book yourself, or you don't have the time to do that, listening to this episode will be more than enough. So first, what is this book? For those who have not heard of it, this is the OG book of personal finance. To me, it actually feels like a very long and comprehensive analysis on wealthy people. And the book actually came out in 1996. I didn't really know that before I was reading the book, but you can kind of tell the age of the book between the lines. For example, it kept referring to millionaires as he, and there's, I think, a few pages about the wives of the millionaires. It's very clear that it is talking about a very traditional American family or household from the last century where 80% of the time the guy contributes to most of the household income and the wife most of the time is just housewives. But that doesn't actually impact us learning from the book, learning from a few takeaways or like the lessons from the interviewers, from the interviews of those wealthy people. And I actually work on data analysis as my day job. At work, usually, for example, we look at a few weeks or months of data or maximum yearly data. That's pretty much it. But one thing that I was surprised to see in the book is that how much effort that the authors have really put in and how solid, and which basically means like how solid the outcomes are. So the authors, they spent 20 years collecting data from more than 14,000 wealthy people in the US. What they do is that they send out the surveys or they do focus groups with the most wealthy people in the US, and then they review the scripts, and then they summarize like what are the key learnings, what are the common things among all these wealthy people, and then they put it together and then publish it as a book. So that's the Millionaire Next Door. If you don't have the time to read it or like finish this episode, just one main takeaway from the book. Through hard work, diligence, frugality, and time, households can become wealthy even without a 6- or 7-figure salaries. That's it. Like this is summarizing the whole book. This is it. Like that's the one line, the punchline from the book. When I was reading the book, I can feel that for sure, like the authors, they have a certain target cohort in mind who will benefit from the book the most. I wouldn't say that this book is gonna be applicable for everyone out there because everyone has their different spending behavior or their preference for expenses, their type of income, or what they think of money in their life. So this book will benefit those who finish the college and are pursuing a career in perceived lucrative area. So basically, they have a decent income. And those who really want to be wealthy, they want to accumulate wealth. And they're not doing it now, and they don't know why. So these are the cohort of the population that the book will be really beneficial for, because this group of people, they fit the profile of the wealthy people that the authors interviewed for this book. But the outcomes are different. So this book can really tell you what is the delta, what is the difference between the behavior of these two populations. And this even makes the book more relevant to me because I fit the profile of those who will benefit from the book the most. So I work for a big tech company, I earn a decent salary, and I really want to get financial independence as early as possible. So that's actually one of the reasons why I kept reading, and then I thought that it would be very beneficial to summarize it and share it with more people, especially for those who are like me. This book was actually first published in 1996, as I mentioned earlier. And then the way they did it was it started as a research on profiling wealthy people first, but then it was extended to a whole project when researchers found out that the real wealthy people are very different from what people thought they might be. This is actually also one of my first reaction to the book. At the beginning, if you ask me what wealthy people look like, we have seen so many shows or media or on TV painting a picture about what extremely wealthy people are and what they do, what they wear, where they live, right? Wealthy people are usually associated with hyperconsumption. In recent years, there were reality shows like Bling Empire, Dubai Bling, New York Bling, I believe. It's the reality show talking about extremely wealthy people and what their life looked like. It got a lot of attention, a lot of viewership. So those extremely rich people, they have fancy cars and then they have really luxury mansions and they live in extremely upscale neighborhoods. However, in reality, from the book, right, from the actual data stats, what we saw is that 80 to 85% of the millionaires, they're self-made and they become financially independent in one generation, meaning that they can maintain their lifestyle for years without earning. Here I want to point out that being a millionaire does not literally mean that they just have 1 million or more. The amount doesn't really seem that much today, especially in the Bay Area. I've seen multiple times, for example, on social media or on Blind, right? People post their salary, and it's easily 1 million plus, I think, for people who are in very senior positions, working as a software engineer in big tech company. The point is that they are financially independent. For example, in the Bay Area, having 1 million plus net worth might not be a hard thing to achieve because you have a very high income. But being able to say that you are financially independent and not need to rely on your high-paying tech job at all, it's hard. It's a hard thing to say for a lot of people. And I'm actually curious what percent of people can actually say that comfortably in the Bay Area. Therefore, there are still a few interesting lessons to learn from the book, right? Especially, and also things that are meaningful for people like us who have decent income and who want to be financial independent. Before we start the key learnings from the book, one thing to clarify or to share is how the authors define different people with different wealth accumulation behavior. So they use these words a lot, those terms a lot in the book. For example, they call people who are very good at accumulating wealth. These people are prodigious accumulator of wealth, PAW, versus under accumulator of wealth, so UAW. If you read the book in the later lessons, like in the later chapters, you see like PAW, UAW all the time. But that's what it means. So how do you know what category you belong to? There's a very simple calculation. And I also used it, and then apparently I am not a PAW. I'm maybe somewhere in between. So you can use 1/10 of your age times your total annual income. For example, taking a staff software engineers earning in the Bay Area, right? And who is like 30 years old. I feel like it's pretty common here. So you are 30 years old and then you earn 1 million per year. So you should be having 3 million net worth right now. Do you? I wonder what percent of people actually are there. If not, my guess is not a lot. So if that's the case, then the question is, why not? So there are a few lessons that the authors talked about in the book. There are 7 factors that are pretty common among those who can build wealth. Lesson number 1, they live well below their means. It's pretty intuitive, right? Like, earning is one perspective, one aspect, but how much you save, like what you spend, is another. For example, I remember that in the one of the chapter, they talk about like when they were preparing for the interview, they thought that the millionaires will dress really fancy, and then they would prefer fancy places and then fancy food. So therefore, for the interview, the authors, they rented a penthouse in Manhattan, and then they hired a catering team and also the bar, they set up a bar for all the different types of fancy drinks. They thought that this will be something that the millionaires or wealthy people, they will really like it. And the interviewees came and they look completely different from what they saw. Like they're just ordinary people. It's hard to tell. Like they don't look like that they are wealthy or they're millionaires per se. And then they end up just eating the normal food from the catering team, and then they just drink the normal drinks. Nothing fancy about them. And then who end up like just eating everything? Then it's the researchers, like, who paid money for it. So it was actually pretty funny for me to read the story. And it was also counterintuitive for me, because I really thought that I've seen so many shows or TV about how fancy those wealthy people are. And it seems that I was also wrong. It's just because of the influence of all the media and TV, I had a complete different picture of what wealthy means for those people. Apart from how they look and how they dress, where you live, how much your home costs, it's a very big factor. One rule of thumb that the authors bring up in the book is basically how to know how much mortgage that you can afford, right? And then it will not get in the way of your pursuit of financial independence. So you should not purchase a home that requires a mortgage that's more than 2 times of your household's annual realized income. One example, if you and your partner get $250K each year, so your household gets in total $500K realized income, which I think is pretty common, right, for a Bay Area household. You should not take out a mortgage of $1 million plus. If you use this rule of thumb, and given how expensive the Bay Area housing are, I guess now you can understand why maybe a lot of the people or households with really high income in Bay Area are not really financially independent. But if you're serious about financial independence, then if you decide to purchase a home in Bay Area, this rule of thumb will help you filter out a lot of the home and options. Maybe it will help you make a better financial decision. That's lesson number 1. They live well below their means. Lesson number 2, they allocate their time, energy, and money efficiently in ways conducive to building wealth. So how you spend your time, your energy is really important. If you really care about your financial independence, you should spend time and energy to make sure that you're on the right track. So for example, like it's another interesting example that they talked about in the book. There is a doctor with very high income, and then the doctor felt like he is pretty good at managing his finance. But looking at like how he actually spent time on making decisions, this person spent 6 months plus shopping for a luxury car. Yes, like he's also doing all sort of researches. He's going to all the possible dealership to understand the pricing and to do all the negotiation in order to get a luxury car with the best price possible. It's kind of an irony, right? Like your end goal is still to get that luxury car. And the actual wealthy people, they don't spend 6 months plus shopping for a luxury car. Maybe they spend most of the time actually trying to plan for their wealth and then try to think about where to invest or how much to save. And then one interesting thing they mention is the kind of cars that wealthy people drive, it's usually very normal cars. And then they don't change it, like it's older car, and then they don't change their car very frequently. Of course, this doesn't mean that, okay, if you really like luxury car, you should not buy it. This is just an observation of what most people do, what most of the wealthy people do. Whether you do that or not, that's completely up to you, like your preference. And I guess like the lesson here is basically don't feel like if you spend 6 months plus shopping for a luxury car, that means that you're spending the right amount of time and energy on managing your money. The actual meaning of managing your money has a completely different meaning. That's lesson number 2. Lesson number 3, they believe that financial independence is more important than displaying high social status. It's similar to like how this kind of connect back to how they dress and then what they eat and then where they live, right? And then what they drive. So it means that they don't really feel like they have to be fancy. They have to always get the latest model to show to people that they're wealthy and they're better. So they don't associate their social status with how they look or what they consume, what they drive. Next lesson, their parents didn't provide economic outpatient care. This one is also interesting. So I guess this also related to the profile of most of the wealthy people. They're self-made, right? And then they got rich in one generation. Of course, yes, they are self-made, which means that they didn't get a lot of economic help from their parents and they didn't inherit money. So people who actually inherit the money from parents and become wealthy, they have different behaviors. So that's a different topic altogether. Here we're talking about those who are self-made and then who become wealthy in one generation. Next lesson, their adult children are economically self-sufficient. This is also straightforward. Like your children does not need a lot of your help. So they make enough money and then they are able to live on their own. If you have a kid where you have to spend a lot of money, and then it's again, like it's kind of a debt that you can never get out from. The number 6 lesson, they are proficient in targeting market opportunity. I think this is an interesting one. So they talks about like what kind of business they build. And one lesson is that they build business that supplies the needs of the wealthy people. And they're sensitive to, so those wealthy people, you might think, okay, they save so much, right? Like they don't want to spend on those consumer goods. What can we do? The reality is that they are sensitive to consumption goods, but they're not to investment services. So there are actually a few type of business that were mentioned in the book where the rich people are actually willing to spend a lot of money on. And then the rich people who are in this business also benefit from that. So the whole point of this lesson is basically try to think of the business that you supply services to wealthy people and you make money from wealthy people. If you succeed, which means that, and then also as time goes by, there are going to be more and more wealthy people, right, in the US, and then people have a higher consumption or like spending power, your business will be better in that way. So it's actually very interesting for me to read this chapter because I'm just constantly thinking about what kind of business I should build. I can give a few examples. For example, like the kind of market opportunity that were mentioned in the book are, for example, lawyer, right? Estate laws, and then estate planning. There are more and more people who care about this, and if you are expert in this, then obviously you can get a lot of benefit from building a business like this. For example, like tax, accountant, right? These are also kind of business that people really need. Tax planning, very important for wealthy people. And it is a kind of service that people will be willing to spend money on. That's another good one. Other things such as contractors, home design. So a lot of those things are things that, again, wealthy people will be more interested in. Like they will be willing to spend money on hiring professionals to provide those kind of services. Last lesson, they chose the right occupations. So one thing that I mentioned again and again in the book was that what money, like where the wealthy people pay most of their income to. That is tax. So a lot of them, actually, they become wealthy. They're better at accumulating wealth by owning a small business. Because the highest expenditure is always income tax. And the business offers lots of tax benefits compared to being a W-2 earner. So then how do you build your wealth, right? Leveraging all the tax benefits. There is just one key principle. You have to find ways to reduce your realized income. For W-2 earner, there's no way for you to do this. There is very less flexibility in this. But for wealthy people that they interviewed in the book, what they do is they minimize their realized income and maximize their unrealized income. Unrealized income, those could be your wealth, your capital appreciation that does not have cash flow. The book goes much more deeper into that. So if you're interested in, especially on this chapter, you can just open the book and then read this part. So to summary, these are everything. And to summary, what is the profile of wealthy people, an average wealthy person or household that the authors interviewed in the book? They are frugal. They are conscious investors. And they own their business. This is the formula. That's it. If you do this, from the stats perspective, you have a pretty high chance of becoming the next millionaire next door or the next person who are financially independent next door. When I was reading, and then I was also doing some research online, a lot of the things that people question, that people ask is, this book was published, right, in 1990s. Is it still relevant today? Can we still learn something from today? After all the summary that I shared above, right, you tell me, do you feel it's still relevant? To me, I would say definitely yes. Because it's way easier right now to get access to more material stuff. It's just so easy to spend money. And then there's so many media, TV out there showing you what wealthy means, which is not the truth. And you become hyper consumer all the time. It's so easy to do that. And with the same day delivery, all the online shopping stuff, it's very easy to do that. And the TV media and press are showing you the lavish life of rich people, making viewers think that being wealthy equals to being hyper-consumptive. But one thing to remember, wealth is not income. And everything that you're seeing, being exposed to on the TV and media, that is the opposite of what most of the wealthy people do. And it's true that, yes, the book is talking about millionaire, and 1 million right now, it's not much, does not seem much, especially in the Bay Area. But the principles for long-term financial independence still holds. Again, one thing to add at the end of this episode is, really, I see this book as an summary of observations for people who are wealthy and who were able to accumulate wealth to a point where they don't need to rely on going to job every day or going to work every day to maintain their lifestyle. It doesn't matter how much exactly they have and they own. What matters is, this is the kind of life state that I want to be in. So therefore, I think all these lessons are still meaningful for me. Of course, the kind of life that you want to live and the relationship between you and money, it's different for everybody. And I wouldn't say that all these lessons means that you have to do exactly what was told in the book to be happy or to achieve the kind of life state you want. So again, just take what you think is helpful and then internalize it and then apply it to life. I hope this is helpful, and if there are other books that you're interested, let me know. I'm more than happy to do other episodes and then summarizing the personal finance books and share it with everyone. Thank you so much.